thank you for joining the Tenbound Revenue Alignment and Community Sales Development Conference. I'd like to go over a few housekeeping rules. We'd like to remind you that this session will be recorded and will be readily available sometime after the event. Please follow us at Tenbound on all socials to stay up to date for when those will be posted. For any questions you may have, please drop them in the Q&A chat located at the right-hand side of the screen. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Demand Generation plus Sdr equals Pipeline Machine featuring Rob Simmons, Jordan Henderson, and Meghan Flannery.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. Cool. So I know we have a short amount of time. I'm going to jump in. So as you mentioned, I'm Jordan Henderson. I'm the head of revenue operations at Ring DNA. My job sort of focuses entirely around the concept of aligning sales and marketing. So I'm super excited today to speak on a panel that features both demand gen and SDRs. And I want to give a moment for my colleagues to go ahead and introduce themselves. Megan, if you want to go ahead and start.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I actually lead the go-to-market team here at Drift. So we are the demand generation function that drives all of our campaigns and programs. And I work really closely with sales and SDRs to do so.
Yeah, I'm Rob Simmons, VP of Sales Development at Lean Data. I've been leading software sales teams for almost 10 years now. I've been a client of Lean Data's 3 times over. So super excited to be here now leading the sales development team.
There's always something a bit extra satisfying about joining a company whose product that you've used and believed in, right? Like
you got to believe in what you sell.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you both on today to talk about that. And as Christina mentioned, we're going to be talking about aligning your demand gen and SDR team. I mean, at the end of the day, as a RevOps person, to me, this is one of the most fundamental, if not the most fundamental pieces of alignment between sales and marketing, because it's the obvious point where those two teams connect no matter what, right? They have to connect at this juncture. So really interesting to have a marketer and a salesperson on to talk about this. Where I want to start is actually really broadly speaking, like, why is this topic important to you guys? Like in your current role, like what about this topic is super important to you?
Yeah, I can go first. I think ultimately, like, our demand gen campaigns and all of what I'm measured on can't be successful without the SDR team. So we, especially at Drift, are so metrics focused. And I know like both teams are on the demand gen side and the SDRs. But if my SDRs don't know what campaigns we're running and we don't know like what their SLAs look like, it's just like nothing is going to mesh and we're not going to like row in the same direction. So I just think it's such a critical component of any demand gen campaign and so important.
Yeah, fully agree. Leading sales development people. I mean, we do a meeting every other week with our demand gen leaders who are coming in and sharing all those different campaigns and different lead sources that we're testing and upcoming events and initiatives and stuff like that to make sure our SDRs are well aware of what's going on. To answer your question, Jordan, I think it's extremely important that demand gen folks and sales development folks are really well aligned for tons of reasons, primarily because we're both super focused on scaling the pipeline for the organization, and we can't achieve that without each other. So for me, like, I'm always going to be probably outside of my boss and my managers, like the people I speak to the most are demand gen folks, and I want to always be in sync with them, providing good feedback in terms of what we're seeing.
So that's an interesting point, right? Like outside of your managers, it's probably even inside of your managers, right? It might be the team you interact with the most. What does that interaction look like? Like what sort of things are you communicating? What info is important for you to send upstream to demand gen? What does your demand gen team ask you for?
Yeah, so when I'm communicating back to them, it's usually as much as possible, like what's working, what's not working. Where do we feel like, as far as all the different lead sources that we're getting, whether that be demo requests, content downloaders, event follow-up leads, webinar follow-up leads, all that kind of stuff. My team has a good pulse. They're the ones that's in the trenches, and they're actually calling and emailing these folks, and so they have a really good sense of people that are, the right titles, the right personas, folks that are actually responsive and interested. So that's the type of feedback that usually I'm hearing from our demand gen team is what's working, right? Like what leads are we driving y'all that are actually engaging with you and are responsive and are ultimately we're able to get meetings with. And so that's the kind of stuff they're asking me for. And I can get more granular, more specific with them by going into our sales engagement platform and actually looking at the response rates on things like email templates and sequences and cadences and all that. Usually they're looking for what kind of open rates, what kind of reply rates are we getting? And then ultimately we want to look at how many meetings have we had from each of these different lead sources or campaigns? And then what has that netted us in terms of pipeline? Those are usually the things that we kind of solve together.
Nice, that's awesome. So essentially like helping them with targeting, helping them refocus efforts on things that are high converting, or actually like creating valuable pipeline, or actually closing business, essentially, helping inform their entire strategy, I guess, because you have the data, they have the effort, right?
Help me help you. Yeah. And we obviously want to double down wherever it's working. So if we do have a particular lead source that is generating a lot of meetings for us, like I want to make sure I communicate that as fast as possible to our marketing department so that we can go double down in that area.
Got it. Meghan, anything that you would add to the list of things that you want to know?
Definitely, there's so much, but I think like a lot of times in my campaigns, I have a pretty good understanding of what's working, what's not working. And I know, like on the campaign level, actually, like this webinar was really successful or this event was successful. What I love to hear from the SDRs and the conversations we have often are kind of in two areas. One, like we're trying to get up market. So sometimes I don't have a look back at such a the performance of certain channels or certain campaigns for each business unit. Like what do we need in the enterprise? Like the SDRs are really the front lines of that. So like I don't have things to analyze what's your gut feeling, what was really successful, what generated pipeline within that month, what was like the best converting source. So by like segment or business unit is a really good lens, and I try to break it down that way. And then the second thing is around like volume and the flow of that, because we're constantly tweaking. I don't know about you guys, but like we're constantly tweaking the routing rules, or like, like this month.
You got to get into lean data and change those routing rules all the time.
There you go. Or we're changing certain like parameters, and it's so great when I can have a really honest and transparent conversation. The inbound reps are like, hey, the volume's down this week. Look at my workflow, understand kind of what their dashboards look like, what a day in the life looks like. That's all really helpful for me, because I can understand, okay, we need to amp up this activity, or, well, that was a strategic decision, but maybe we need to, route leads differently. That sort of thing is super helpful to hear.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I like the idea of breaking it down into two buckets for what it's worth. Like, I think that's a super helpful framework for sort of how you approach that and identify which bucket has issues or where you need to focus things. I want to make sure we have like actionable takeaways for people in the audience. So I want to take a step back, because I think the most foundational thing in aligning your SDR team and your demand gen team is actually your SDR structure and your demand gen structure, for what it's worth, right? Like, if it's structured poorly or in a way that makes it very difficult to align those teams, that's going to create a wrinkle before you even get started. So there's a lot of questions that sort of stem from this. The first one, I'm always curious, because there's a lot of strong opinions on this. Are your SDRs hybrid, or are they specific? Are they focused on inbound, one team's focused on outbound?
I can take this one first, I guess, being being the sales development person here. So here's how we structure it, and this is primarily how I've done it at other organizations too, is it is a little bit of a hybrid. We have inbound, we have outbound, but even my outbound folks are going to get a little bit of inbound leads. They get the benefit of, if an inbound comes in from one of their accounts that they've been working, I want to reward them and incentivize them with that. So we segment our business into commercial and enterprise, and it's based upon employee headcount within those organizations. And we get even more granular than that. There's an emerging commercial, a mid-market, an emerging enterprise, a large enterprise. And then we do have an inbound team as well. So the intention with the inbound folks is it's all about speed to lead. We want them to be reaching out to inbound leads, whether that be someone that raised their hand and requested a demo, or someone that's just browsing content on our website, as fast as possible, and try and convert them before they potentially even leave our website, right? So that's why, I guess that's the intention behind having an inbound team, is you have folks that are there at the ready that can really prioritize those inbound leads and capitalize on that speed to lead. And then I want my more savvy, more experienced SDRs that have been doing this longer on the outbound side being really the hunters of our organization. And they're not always going to be at the ready to respond to that inbound lead right then and there. So, because they're making cold calls, right? And then they're working their named accounts. So that's how we structure it, and that's kind of why we structure it the way we do.
Got it. And you mentioned speed to lead. I mean, I think the split for inbound to outbound, speed to lead is obviously a huge piece of that, right? It's very, very important. There's a stat from Meghan's company Drift about the importance of speed to lead, which is essentially if you call in the first 5 minutes or if you call 30 minutes later, your chance of getting them on a meeting eventually drops by 21x. Which is insanely bad if you're calling 30 minutes versus 5, right? And very few companies are calling within 5 minutes. Like, if I polled everybody I know that's in our roles at different companies, it's got to be like less than 10% of people are actually calling in that first 5 minutes for their hot leads. Meghan, what about you? How do you structure it, and why?
Yeah, we're pretty similar in terms. I would say it's hybrid. We are also segmented by enterprise, mid-market. Actually has two, like strategic mid-market, focused mid-market, and then growth. So there's 4 kind of BU segments. And the outbound SDRs do get inbound leads based on their target accounts. And then our inbound or true inbound folks on what we call volume accounts, because we're using the double funnel. So we also have, and an important thing, especially being Drift, chat SDRs, basically, conversational development.
Oh, that's interesting. So they focus solely on chat.
They focus solely on chat. They live in the product and the website and chat all day long. Obviously, Drift doesn't have forms, speed to lead, everything. Faster response times. They can, route in the reps immediately and give that kind of like white glove treatment if you know it's an ABM or a target account. So we have people just at the ready when it comes to our website.
That's awesome. So with I've actually never seen somebody that's just a chat SDR. That's super interesting. Are they essentially just pouncing as fast as they can on the website? Is that?
Yeah. Yep. They are routed into conversations like as soon as someone engages with the Drift bot and wants to speak to someone, or they can voluntarily jump in. It's a lot of, if there's people that use Drift, it's what your SDRs might be doing, but these are people solely dedicated to that initiative.
Got it. So it sounds like you're both sort of saying you would prefer, if I'm reading this correctly, inbound and outbound split of some kind. Obviously, there's always going to be a bit of overlap, right? Like old inbound leads are still going to get picked up by the outbound team. That sort of thing's going to happen. And Meghan, you're sort of diving in deeper and actually kind of splitting the inbound team up a little bit to be more targeted and specific. So then the question, Rob, you touched on this. You mentioned you like to have your senior SDRs on the outbound team. There's a lot of debate about this right now because I've asked this question to a lot of people, and I know
it's coming.
I know this question's coming. Where do you put your most senior SDRs? What is this structure like? Because SDR is a role that turns over pretty fast, right? Ideally, you're hiring SDRs and in a year promoting them to AEs, because that's one of the biggest values of an SDR team is actually growing AEs, right? And so you will always have scenarios where you have some senior SDRs and some very junior SDRs, and you have 2 different teams, inbound and outbound. Meghan, in your case, you have 3 different teams. How do you structure that? Where do you put them? Right? Like inbound, outbound, who gets the senior reps, who gets the junior? Is it a mix?
So I have a feeling I know what the answer is going to be. I want to hear it from the marketer first. I want to hear it from the marketer.
I don't know what you mean the answer is going to be.
No, there's no surprise. The marketer is going to say, put your best reps on your inbound team. I think they're the hottest leads. You can't afford a mediocre person on the inbound team, in my view, acting as fast as possible. I will say, obviously, there's strengths that you need to consider. Like, it's a huge piece to staffing in terms of, like, on the inbound team, someone who's really detail oriented, super organized, communicates well with marketing. Like, those are the SDRs that I think do best on inbound. And then there's some strategic thinkers that are better positioned for outbound. So I think that's a big component of it. But if I had to take a stake, I'm going to say inbound best SDRs, please.
Got it.
So I can appreciate that argument, and frankly, I don't have a great counter argument for the have some your highest quality people responding to your highest quality leads. I would just say, and I do think it makes sense to consider the skill sets of your reps and be flexible. And if there is someone that seems to be better at the inbound motion, then let them stay there, and let's create a career path where they could stay on the inbound team but still advance within the world of sales. For me, I've always put my most tenured people, my most experienced people on typically my large enterprise sales development team, because it's frankly the hardest job we have within the sales development org, is calling on Salesforce, Microsoft, whoever you name it, that enterprise account, and having to break through and get them to accept a meeting. That's probably the easiest, probably the hardest job within the entire sales organization, is that of an enterprise SDR. That's why I tend to put my best people there. Also, the average sale price, average contract value within that segment, those deals are going to be worth more. So there's always an emphasis to, how do we get more enterprise opportunities? And again, that's why I'm going to put my best people on that assignment.
I like that you teed that off with, I don't have a good answer to that, and then went into a very good answer to that question.
Maybe it's all relevant to me right now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that, obviously the disagreement here, right? And I like that you both sort of caveated your answer with skill set matters. There's no hard and fast rule here, right? If you happen to hire, say you're in a company that prefers to have your senior SDRs on inbound, but you happen to hire somebody who shows all the skills and attributes to be great on inbound, fine. Make that exception, make that jump, right? It should be analyzed a bit less hard and fast and a bit more of a gray area. It is sort of, I think what I'm hearing. The argument that I've heard, and I actually like for senior reps on inbound, which I'm sort of maybe leaning towards Meghan a little bit on this one, but is marketing is becoming more sophisticated. Your competitors are becoming more sophisticated. So when somebody comes in via marketing, they've actually done a bunch of research. They've researched you, they've researched your competitors. They're a more informed buyer, and therefore it's more difficult for your inbound team now than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, because they're getting more sophisticated questions and they're expected to have answers to objections that if I cold call somebody on outbound, the objections are more like, what do you do? Right? Because you're educating them versus them coming in educated. But totally hear your point. I think to your point, Rob, if you do shift your outbound SDRs or your senior SDRs over to inbound, you almost have to change your whole business model a little bit, right? Because I can't expect my junior SDRs to have the same level of performance on outbound. And so therefore my outbound bookings is going to be, I should have a lower expectation for outbound bookings and a higher expectation for inbound bookings as a result.
That's right. Yeah, it's something we've, I have been thinking about this lately, and something we've done fairly recently is actually taking our enterprise inbound leads and routing those to our enterprise outbound SDRs. So that way we can ensure that if we do get one of those marquee enterprise accounts comes inbound, I'm actually going to instead give it to one of my enterprise reps. We might sacrifice a hair there on the speed to lead factor, but I can make sure that I've got my most experienced person talking to that super hot lead that's probably going to, like you said, come well-researched and have very specific technical questions.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only reason I've thought the same thing, right? And the only reason I haven't done it in the past is exactly what you said, is I'm so nervous about speed to lead because I think it's such an important thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a super interesting idea. Meghan, I'm curious, who are you putting on the chatbot role? What level of seniority are you doing there? How do you determine that?
Yeah, it's really junior, and sometimes they do become SDRs. It's kind of a path for them if they so choose, or they might go into customer success or something like that. It's an entry level role though, very customer focused. They know the Drift product and interface with support better than anybody, and they know how to navigate the organization. So it kind of pivots wherever they want to go, but they do often feed the SDR org as well.
It's such an interesting concept. I haven't heard about this at all, and I think it's kind of wonderful. Chatbots have become such an ubiquitous thing, and they're so powerful when people are on them very aggressively, and it's so important not to let a robot talk to people on your website, because there's nothing more frustrating than a robot giving you terrible answers.
Yeah, 100%, especially if they're on the pricing page or something really high converting. I mean, there's just there's no reason that somebody shouldn't be there to greet them and be really personable and have the human element. So yeah, we make that a priority.
It's amazing. Who do your SDRs report to for both of you? What, is it marketing? Is it sales? This is split again across the board. Who do they roll into?
Mine used to report into marketing, but I'd say maybe it was 6 months ago or so, they moved over to sales.
Okay.
as
What do you prefer?
growing mature, I think.
What do you prefer?
It's a great question. I've had it both ways, I think, at every place I've been. I like it now. I think I like it reporting to sales so that they're really, really intertwined, especially like I lead ABM here at Drift, and I think it's so important for the AE and the SDR to be super, super tight on what those accounts are and what those strategies are. But at the same time, I think it's really important to have the relationships and the foundation, like to work with marketing. So that's why I love the kind of structure that we have, where the BU marketers on my team are one-on-one partnering with the SDR segment leaders as well. So they're like, we have fantastic 4 meetings where we review like marketing metrics, sales metrics, SDR metrics all together. And I think as long as that foundation and relationship is there, it works really well when they report to sales.
Got it. Rob, I'm not going to ask you the same question because I assume they
the answer.
And you prefer to report to sales?
I do. Yeah. Most folks, they ultimately want to have a career in sales. And so we find that, it's align them with the part of the org that they for the most part, I'm fortunate to come here at Lean Data where we've had a lot of people go into like customer success and other parts of the organization, but 95% want to become account executives at some point. So it makes sense to align them with the sales side of the organization. And to Meghan's point too, we try and take an account-based sales approach, and we are implementing ABM and all these things. And so it makes sense that you want to have your AEs and your SDRs working super, super closely together. They should be true partners in those named accounts.
Got it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I like that you touched on ABM because I actually see a question from Tracy that I want to jump into really fast because I'm actually, this is very intriguing. Tracy has asked, how does the coordination between the chat SDR and your outbound team work? Essentially, if somebody comes into the chat that is somebody the outbound team has been targeted or is in a named account and a target account, how are you coordinating that to not step on their toes?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the ops answer would be very much more detailed. But at the end of the day, like Drift's white glove accounts or target accounts will always alert like the SDR in the account if they're on the website or the AE on the website. So the chat reps can ping them and say, hey, like your account's live. Would you like to jump in and have this conversation? Or they can take it, and they can either let them engage. They have the ability to kind of cater to that conversation or what they think is best suited for what content they're looking at or how they're engaging with the bot, whether or not they want to jump in. But I think the biggest one of the best features, I guess, is that ability to alert the rep and say, hey, like your Acme company is live right now, and the chat rep can help facilitate that.
Awesome. It's super interesting. I think you're gonna have to like write a whole blog post on how this works because I'm looking at the Q&A right now in the comments, and this seems to be because this is really interesting. I've not heard of this, and honestly, it's right in line with what your business does, so it totally makes sense.
We also have the booth. Like there's the like people there that can kind of get nitty gritty with you too. So feel free to jump in there after this session.
Yeah, I love the little self promo. Just got to drop it in. Love it. Cool. So I know we just have a couple minutes left. I think I want to make sure we leave again. I think we've got a lot of actionable takeaways, right? Like we've talked about how to structure your team, where they roll into, seniority of reps on different things. The chatbot concept is super interesting and fascinating. How to do upstream feedback in a way that's helpful for both your demand gen and your SDRs. We've covered a lot. There's one sort of more simple thing that I want to ask. What tools are you using and why are they important? Like, what are you using them for? What are like your top 3 things that you're using across this, sort of bridge here and why?
Should we put an asterisk like besides your CRM?
Well, you can, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, of course. Like, let's not talk about Salesforce. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Everybody gets it. We all use Salesforce, and you can talk about your own tool a little bit too. I will cut you off if it's a 2 sales pitch because I assume that's going to be on both of your lists as well. But I'd just love to hear, like, people are using intent data, people are using all sorts of things to enrich, like you might have ZoomInfo enriching things as they come in, right? You're using different sequencing platforms, dialer platforms. Also, like tech stacks are huge now for marketing and sales. We're talking tens of thousands of software products on the market, right? So what are you using? And do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you recommend it?
Our tech stack is massive. Like I think most people's probably is, but that's good. I love sales technology. Anything that makes the team more efficient, more effective, I'm all about it. I'm always down to check out new solutions for all the SDRs out there, as long as you can convince me that it's going to save my team time and effort. So for us, I mean, beyond the CRM, I would say we probably spend the most of our time in our sales engagement platform. There's lots of good solutions out there. For us personally, we use Outreach. So I'm trying to get the team to be like solely focused and living out of that. I find that it's much more actionable than the CRM. CRM's designed for like being that kind of center of your universe and really great at storing data. But then ultimately, like when you need to take action on things, I find that the sales engagement platform is the place to be. Also, I would say, I have to say lean data for us, not just because I work there, but I can say it as a previous customer. Like when we want to have speed to lead, you have to have a lead to account matching and routing solution, something that's going to automate when someone requests a demo. It should automatically go into sequence. We shouldn't be waiting for someone to look at it, qualify it, then put it into sequence. We need to be in that 5 to 10 minute SLA range. And so that's what lean data does for our organization. And then we can't really do anything without great data. So I would say ZoomInfo is probably the other biggest piece of our tech stack that we rely on. We use it both for enriching, as things come into the system, but then also when we need to go do outbound prospecting and find new contacts to go after. It seems to be the most reliable out there right now.
You mentioned one of our competitors. If only there was a sales engagement platform that lived in your CRM, so they could do both at the same time, right? By the way, that's what RingData does.
Sick an SDR on me, Jordan.
If only. Yeah, one of my SDRs will be following up after this.
Yeah.
If you go on the website, we're gonna now have a chat SDR.
I'll give you my cell. You can give my cell to someone. I wanna hear the cold call.
I would actually put money on one of the SDRs from RingData is in this right now, watching, seeing if they can prospect anybody, because
bring it on.
It's coming. But awesome.
All right, Meghan.
And the other two tools, Lean Data and ZoomInfo, totally agree. Love them both. I've probably propped up Lean Data 30 times in the past year to other people. I love it. It's an awesome platform. ZoomInfo also, of course, data integrity, super important. Meghan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like Marketo and Drift are the obvious ones for the marketing side of the house. And then we just implemented 6sense. So I'll give a shout out there because I think it's a great
us too.
Technology. Yeah, that kind of does live at the center of demand gen and SDR. So I actually love that coming to life. We got it for a multitude of reasons, but primarily like it helps with our lead scoring and determining who we pass, really, like with the qualified leads and everything. And it also gives us some really good insight for like the SDR organization to go after, and then like segmentation for the marketing as well. So it's kind of that like holistic marketing plus sales. And I just think it's been a really successful rollout. I think we're proving it out. It has higher conversion rates than our typical scoring right now. So big fan.
Do your SDRs go after only accounts that 6sense tells them to, or do they go after all the accounts and just leverage 6sense for kind of like incremental data points?
Yeah, more the latter, but we kept our scoring model for now and the way that we pass everything, but we've added 6 QAs on top of it, so they get both of them.
6sense, for anybody listening who's not familiar, is an intent data platform. Super powerful. We also implemented it, I think, about a year ago now, but super powerful and helpful. Sounded Tegways, we have 1 minute left. I want to get to one question here because you guys were just touching into it. Who do your SDRs, BDRs, who do they chase? And what sort of behavior or engagement are you using to target? Which I think goes into 6sense as well, right?
Who do they chase? Behavior engagement after. So how do they identify prospects to go after, I guess is the question.
I think that's the question. Like, how are they identifying who they should like?
Yeah.
Are they coming on this webinar? They see Rob mention our competitor and they're targeting the crap out of him? Like, yeah, probably.
That would be the smart way to do it. Yes. Always be personalized. But so for us, we're an account-based sales organization. Folks have a percentage of the accounts that are in their name are 6 QAs from 6sense. The other part are named accounts. So they're probably have like, let's say on average, 180, 200 accounts in their name. They're going through there, making sure that they have sufficient amount of people active in sequences in outreach within each of those accounts. And we target people by persona. So for us, we kind of sell into 3 different buckets. It's demand gen, it's sales and sales development leadership, and then it's revenue operations, sales operations. So we want to make sure that we have some kind of hooks in the water from each of those key personas within our target accounts.
Yeah. And I think she might have meant chat BDRs as well. And yeah. And so the way, I guess, like, we have a lot of different playbooks. I'll start there. The kind of the chat flow is what we call a playbook, and it depends on who you are as an account. Like if you're a target account, if you are a white glove, ABM, VIP experience account, if you are a volume account, which means, you know, we'll take you if you're raising your hand, but you're probably not our bread and butter, right? Like those are 3 separate experiences that come through on the Drift site and have different experiences within those playbooks. And the CDRs are able to know that level of experience and who they want to jump in at that time. And there's also like various, obviously, like I mentioned, being on pricing page, they're going to jump in there, or, you know, like key factors like that, and different behaviors, but that's kind of how it works. And they rely on the routing and the playbooks.
Awesome. CDRs, chat development rep.
I just got that too.
That's right.
CDR. I love it so much. But we really don't need another like letter DR, like BDR, SDR, like XDR. It's CDR.
You need CDRs. Yeah, you do.
It's getting out of hand what we're calling this. But no, I love the idea. I know we are up to time. The only thing I wanted to note is everybody here, if you want to get more information, of course, follow Meghan, follow Rob, follow myself on LinkedIn, connect with us, send us emails. Everybody prospect Rob very aggressively. He loves when SDR him, so please go after him entirely.
Oh boy.
And anything else you guys want to add? Any last final thoughts before we close it out and let everybody get to their next session?
No, I just echo you. You know, SDRs, stay strong. You got a hard job. Be personal and be close with your demand gen team for pipeline success.
Yeah, absolutely, partner. We're all after the same goal, same team, and I feel that more strongly than ever. So it's been a pleasure, guys.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks everybody for joining in. And if you have questions, follow us, and I'm sure everybody will be happy to respond and help out wherever we can.
Awesome.
Cool.
Bye.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks,
Jordan. Bye-bye.